So let's go ahead and get into the external references. You're going to be using your floor plan to generate the elevation of your building. This is the floor plan. I have it at a very early stage, and I'm doing this on purpose to show you how I can still get started with my elevation, even though my floor plan is not finished. So I have this open. I also have my X site open, and I'm going to use this drawing to show you how the XREFs are used. And then I have a new drawing file over here, and this is what I'm going to use to begin my elevation. So let me go back over to X plan and just pointing out that, this is what I have on the screen and all of my layers are turned on, and I'm going to zoom extents. And yes, I have this bathroom floating up here just because, and I'm leaving it there on purpose. And then I'm going to come over to my X site. So I want to take this floor plan and I want to place it on my site. So I'm going to go to my site drawing here. And I'm remembering that I had some sample rectangles here to represent buildings. If I don't need them anymore, I can delete them. I can freeze the layer, whatever you'd like to do. So I'm on layer 0, and this is very important. You should be on layer 0 whenever you are going to externally reference any drawing file into a drawing. Let me do this also. Let me take that temp layer and just freeze it for now. All right. So, like I said, I want to bring in the floor plan. Now, I could come over here to my blocks, and I could go to my library, and I could find the floor plan and bring it in. If I did that, what would happen is the floor plan becomes a block, which means it is a drawing within my drawing file. And if I make any changes to the floor plan when I finish it, I would have to repeat the process and I would have to load the block again or load the drawing file and it would become a block. And that gets to be very tedious. So what AutoCAD has is this concept of external references. So I'm able to reference a file in here and I want to reference the floor plan. So I already have that window open on the side, but if you don't, you simply type EX, XREF. Huh, I should have known better. You simply type XREF, and when you enter, it'll open the window. And I'm just going to bring mine out a little bit, float it right here so you can see it. And what it's showing me is a section here that shows what I will be externally referencing into my site drawing, and then the details of that file. So what I want to do is come up here to this icon, and it says attach DWG, but I want to click on the drop down and show you that you can also attach PDFs and other formats, but we're going to stick with DWG. So I'll click on attach DWG. And this is opening up in a separate folder. Give me 1 second. I need to navigate and get it to the right folder. So it is asking me, what file do you want to reference? So I have my folder and I would like to reference my floor plan. So I give it a click and notice how it's showing me the preview. Great. And I'm going to click open. When I click open, this window comes up and this looks similar to the block dialog box where it's asking a few questions and there's a few sections. So we'll take it nice and slow here. So it shows the preview. Yes, that's the drawing I want to bring in. There's something here called a reference type, and we're going to go with attachment for now. And I'll show you later how you can change it to an overlay. But really what this means is if it's an attachment, you're going to see it every single time you reference this drawing file elsewhere, the site plan. If it's an overlay, then there's a limit to it. Over here under scale, we all know that it's drawn at 1:1, so we don't need to change anything there. So leave it alone. For the insertion point, here's where I will specify on screen because I'm not sure where I want to place it yet. For the path type, because all of my files are going to reside in the same folder, I set it to no path. And it basically means do not search for this file anywhere outside of my folder because it will all be here. And then the rotation here, I'm going to leave it alone at 0, 0 or 0 degrees because that's how I intended to bring it in. Block unit, leave that alone. So I just want to show you something here. This is why there is an X in front of the name. Now, like I said to you before, anything with an X in front of it, this is a standard that I've established, a very long time ago. That basically means that I want to externally reference that file elsewhere. So I'm going to now click OK. And when I click OK, it's now asking, where do you want to place your building? I don't know exactly where, so I'm just going to drop it right here. I haven't decided on the specific location yet, but at least I have the file in here. So when I look at it and I click on it, notice how it all highlights, and it lets me know that this is an external reference over in my properties. So if I look at my properties, it says external reference. And yes, make sure it is on layer 0. I don't need to change anything here. And then when I go over to my external references, you'll see that it lists that drawing file. Now, in order for this to make a little bit more sense, I always tell students, come over here to this icon right here. It's a little small. It says tree view. Give that a click. And when you set it up to a tree view, it explains it a little bit better. This is my drawing. That's my floor plan. I'm sorry, that's my site plan. And then this is the plan that I have now brought in. I have referenced it in here. And it shows me my reference information, the location, all of that. So I'm just saying, set it up to a tree view because it'll be a lot easier to manage. So I'm going to go ahead and dock this, anchor it to my right, put it over here to the side. Okay, so I want to show you something now. A couple of things. Number one, I tap the escape key, so I'm out. Now watch this. Let's see, what can I do to make changes? Here we go. I'm going to go over to my X plan right now. And in the X plan here, I decide that at some point I may want a nice big window opening right here. So I'm just going to zoom in here, and I'm going to draw a line, and I'll take it from the middle, or I'll start in the middle, I'll track it up, and maybe I want a window 6 feet wide. So I'm going to take this 3 feet, enter, and I'll let it snap to the perpendicular here, enter. And then I'll basically just offset that line 6 feet to the other side. And I am noticing that it's on the wrong layer for the walls. So I'll just highlight both lines, come up here, and pick my wall layer. And I have a couple of layers in here, wall and walls, and I need to rectify that. And I'll take care of that later. But I now have this, and I'm going to go ahead and trim. So I'll type TR, enter, and I'll just click and drag across like this, release, and then enter again. And then I'm going to zoom extents. Notice the change that I've made. Now I am going to save my file. So Control S saves it. And then I'm going to switch over to my site. And when I do that, AutoCAD is detecting a change to a file that's being XREF'd. And you can see down here in the bubble, it says an XREF was modified. You can click here to reload. And then there's an option here where it says compare the changes. I usually leave this off because I know the changes already. I did them. So I don't have that checked on. So I go ahead and just click on reload. But if by accident you leave it on like this, and then you click on reload, it's just going to show this to you, a comparison. And it's showing me right here exactly what changed. But I already knew that. So all I'm going to do is close this preview, XREF compare, and it's all set. And notice how the change has now appeared here because this XREF is nothing more than the image of that X plan that I have brought in. Another way I like to think about it is like a photograph. So if I'm driving by a house that's being constructed, and I drive by there or walk by there once a month, uh, when I see them putting the foundations, I take a photo. A month later, I go by, I see that they put up the exterior walls, and I take a photo of that. So every time I take a photo, I'm updating my photo of that building. I know it's a kind of a crude example, but it's the image. It's the image I have, and it's providing me an updated image every time I take the photo. Another way to look at it also is like, say, photos of loved ones that we keep on our phones. When, somebody is young, they're growing up, we have little nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, 1 year old, and then we take a photo of them, and then, they get a haircut, we take a photo of them. They get new shoes, we take a photo. We're always updating that. So that photo in a way is just nothing more than the image of the person. And anytime we want to see the latest and greatest version of that individual, we snap another photo, and now we have that available to us. So that's what an XREF is all about. Now, what's really neat about these XREFs is I can come over here to my XREF window, and you see that it's listed right there. And if I click on it, it highlights. And then I've got a couple of options. Number one, I can right click, and when I right click, I can unload this XREF, which means I'll click it, means I don't see it here. It's still part of the file, but I have unloaded it. If I go back to the external references, you'll see that it's still in here, and it also remembers the path. So I can right click and reload it, and it brings it right back. The other thing, and this one is equally important, is that when I don't want that XREF in there anymore, you don't delete or erase the XREF. You come over here and you right click, and you will detach it. So detach, you're going to see the details go away. I'll click on it, and it is now detached, and notice no more details. It's as if I had never brought it in before. So it's helpful, but be mindful that usually we bring an XREF in because we're going to continue to use it. So let me go ahead and unload. I'm sorry, undo, and I have it back. Another way to think about this is, and I say this jokingly, um, if you have a uh, somebody in your home that is now decided that they're going to branch off and live on their own, well, if they're going to go live on their own, if you click unload, they basically still have a key to the house, and they're going to find their way back in. But if you detach, you're basically taking the key away from them, and they can't get back in. It's a little bit of humor for you there, but yeah, it's one way to remember it. Okay. The other thing I wanted to point out here about the XREFs, if I go over to the layer properties manager, let me drag this out, or bring it out here. Okay. You'll see that it has brought the layers in, and they're grayed out. And you notice how it has the name of the file first, and then they have this, what's called a pipe filter, and then the layer names. So they're appearing here because I have my filter set to all. If I set my filter to all non-XREF layers like this, then they're not visible in the list because I filtered them out. And I can go over here where it says XREF, and you can see that there's the XREF layers, and I can click on it, and then it shows me the layers here.
Carlos, eu me senti uma bosta.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to all, so I can see all of my layers. And what you can do with the layers here is you can turn them on, off, freeze, thaw, lock, unlock, all of that. You can even change the colors if you wanted. It doesn't change them back in the original file, it just changes it here in the image. What else did I want to tell you about the layers here? I think that was it for now. I'll dock this back to the left, anchor it there. Okay, and then I go up here to my layer list. And notice, because my filters are currently set to show all layers, then they're appearing here. If that gets to be a little too overwhelming, go back to Layer Properties Manager and then just say all non-XREF layers and then come back over here and you'll see how they're not visible. So you control that, whatever you'd like to do. And I'm okay having them all on. You cannot make any of these layers current. You cannot draw on them. You can only see them. And I'll move my cursor away from there. Now, on my screen, you're seeing it come in nice and bright. And that's because I've made some changes. When you first start using AutoCAD, it will gray this out. And I'll show you how to change that. If I go to Options, so I type in Options here, and under Options, you'll see there's something called Fade Control XREF Display. Looks like mine is currently set to 0, but if you change it, let's see what happens. I believe if I set it to, say, 50% or so, and I apply that, did it change anything? No, I think I need to go in the other direction. Let me see. Did that change anything? Let me try this again. There we go. Sorry. I went in the wrong direction. So this is probably how it looks like on most screens. And they do this on purpose. AutoCAD does. Again, it's just trying to give you visual cues. And it's all there. When it prints out, it's going to print out just fine. It's just that it assumes that you just want to see this a little bit faded. But I don't. So I go into my options and I change my XREF display and I had it set to 0. So I'll click that again. And this is a personal preference. You can set it to whatever you want. So one last thing I want to cover here with these XREFs, and like I said, I left this part of my plan in place on purpose so I can show you this. And it is the clipping option. So once I click on it here, you can see up in my ribbon, it says you can go ahead and create a clipping boundary. And that keyboard shortcut is X clip. So I'm going to click on this. And then I have an option or several options here. And yes, I want to create a rectangular clipping plane. So click on rectangular. And then it says go ahead and specify the first corner. So I'm going to pick it somewhere up here. And then the second corner is going to be right there. And just like that, I'm able to clip this. If I go back to my analogy here of photographs, let's say you took a photograph of somebody and you just want to make sure that everything around them is cropped out, you can go ahead and cut that photo out. So that's what we're doing here, just cropping it or clipping it as it's called. And then there's an arrow here which allows you to invert that clip boundary. But I don't want to do that because I want to see the building, not that temporary bathroom off to the side. So I'm going to invert it again and leave it right there. And then I'll tap the escape key. Now, it's showing what's called a clip frame. I don't want to see that. So what you have to do is type X clip frame, enter. And you can set a value anywhere from 0 to 2. And if you're not sure what you should set it to, I'll show you real quick. Just set it to 0, and then I'll explain in a minute here. So 0, enter, and notice how it's gone. And if you're not sure what the value should be, come up here to where it says type a keyword. And I'm just going to type in xclip frame. That's called a system variable, and enter. And when you do xclip frame, sorry, I'm trying to move it on my screen and it won't let me. All right. When you type X clip frame, here you go. It says that's the system variable. Go ahead and click there and it will show you the values. So 0, 1, or 2. And I said go ahead and set it to 0, which means the frame is not visible and it is not going to be plotted. And then it says the frame temporarily will reappear during selection preview or object selection. So that's the setting I prefer. I'll go ahead and close out the help here. And if I click on the X clip, what's nice, I can zoom in, and then if I want to, I can change the size of that clip frame like this. I'm exaggerating here a little bit just to get a point across. So I'll bring it back and move it over in this direction. So that's how I can control the content that I'm referencing, that I am, this image that I'm bringing in. So that is a bit of information about XREFs. So what I'd like to do now, I'm going to zoom extents here. And yes, notice how I've not put it in any exact location yet. When I'm ready to, I'll do that. And if I wanted to right now, here's how I do this. I'll take my building and I'll type M for move. And let's say that I'll take this corner and I'll move it over here. And then once I've located it there, I go ahead and repeat my move command. I'll pick my XREF, enter. I'll move it up, let's say 5 feet away from my property there. So I type 5 feet. And then I type, or I right click and say repeat move. I'll select my object, enter, and then I'll say I want to bring it back away from the front. I want to set this back about 35 feet. So I type that in. And then I remember I have to put a pergola somewhere, so I'm going to move it back just a little bit more, but I don't want to put it too far back. Not too close to the edge there. So another way I can do this is I can type L for line, and I'll hover right here at this corner, and I'll start tracking in this direction. And I'll say, you know what, at least 15 feet away from that edge. And I'll just draw a line here, enter. I'll take my X clip, highlight it, type M, enter. I'll move it from this endpoint, let it go perpendicular to that line, and then I'll just erase the line. And then I'm going to be putting a pergola here and maybe some gardening containers along the side over here. But then I also need to put in a sidewalk. How is it that I'm going to get from the sidewalk over to my building here? So think about that. What would you like to do? And in my case, I will show you how to do a nice pergola here, but since I have a deck, I'm gonna probably just put a roof over my deck here as well. So I'm just thinking about things that I'll do. So that's how I would put it in place. So I'll go ahead and type Z, enter, E, enter, and I'm all set there. And did I save? Control S, I'm all set. All right. I want to use this floor plan to then generate my elevation. So I already have a drawing started. I'll click over here. I used my HWC template. Everything's all set. The only thing I haven't changed on my template, which I should have, is that UCS origin. So I'm going to type in UCS origin, enter. Sorry, typed it wrong. And I'm still typing it wrong. Oh, UCS icon, sorry. All right, UCS icon it is. So typing UCS icon, no origin. There we go. And it just docks it in the lower left-hand corner. All right. And then from here, type XR, enter. And then I go ahead and select and attach DWG. And I'm going to attach my floor plan. And I'll click open. And again, from the options here, that's the preview. It will be an attachment. The scale stays at 1:1. I will specify on screen. Or actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Yeah, let me drop it at 0, 0, and you'll see why in just a minute. The path type, I'm going to set it to no path and no rotation yet. And then I'll go ahead and click OK. And I did this, dropping it at 0, 0, just to put it into my file. And notice I'm zoomed in pretty close, so I'm going to have to zoom out. So that's 0, 0. And what I'd like to do now is go ahead and just move it up a bit like this. And then I can go ahead and get started with my elevation. So I'm just going to draw a line, L, enter, and it's going to be 0, 0, enter. And I'm just going to bring it over this way and enter. And what I want to do is one of the two elevations. You're going to decide. And let me go back to my example here. So you pick it. Give me 1 second so I can annotate. So you decide if you want to elevate the front, or if you have something really interesting going on that you would like to elevate this side. It's entirely up to you. Just know that this here would be your north elevation. This here is going to be my west elevation. And then I'll just put it out there that this would be your east elevation. And then over here would be your south elevation. And maybe you're going to be putting your building on the other side. Maybe it's going to be a mirror image of mine, of my example. Whatever you decide, but just pick one of the elevations that you will be constructing so that you can then begin using the XREF in your drawing. All right, I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to go back to my drawing here. 1 second. All right. And then this file should be saved. First initial, last name, XELEV for the elevation. Or double check whatever the requirement is. But make sure you save as and give it the appropriate file name. So, like I said, I want to elevate what I'm referring to here as the front of my building, which happens to be the west elevation. In order to do that, I need to rotate my plan. So I'm going to type RO, enter, select my object, enter. It doesn't matter where I pick the base point. I'll just go ahead and click here. And let me turn ortho off for a second. You can see how it's rotating it. I just want to make sure I don't accidentally snap over here. So I want to turn ortho back on and just take it straight up in this direction and click. And then what I'm going to do is simply project lines down so that I can begin to construct my elevation. And I don't need to see this extra information on the XREF. So I'm just going to type in XClip and enter. Select my object, which is the XREF, enter. Yes, I want a new boundary. And yes, I want it to be rectangular. And I'll click here and there. And then I'm going to type in XClip frame and set that to 0. And then I'll go ahead and move my floor plan up. I still have ortho on, so let me hold down Shift key. It disables ortho temporarily, and I'll click right here. And then I'll be ready to start with my elevation. So before I resume with the construction of my elevation, I wanted to point out the layers that we're going to be using. So in this case, and I'll zoom in a little bit here so we can see this a little bit better. There we go. When it comes to elevations, I do layers a little different. So with the floor plan, I was basically referring or categorizing my walls, and then everything that related to the plan, like my fixtures are going to go on a layer. My furniture will go on a layer. But when it comes to the elevations, the choice here is based on line weights. So I'm going to ask you to create a layer called O1 Heavy and make that layer magenta color. And that's going to be for your objects that are in the foreground or objects that need a heavy line weight for these for presentation purposes. And then we go down the list. O2 medium, that'll be red. O3 light, that'll be yellow. And O4 beyond, that's blue. Explaining here what this represents. And then as needed, more layers can get added. And this is just my choice of naming them. And I had to go with numbers first to keep this in alphanumeric order. Otherwise, if I just call it heavy, then this one, if this was just beyond, the beyond would come in first and it would be in a different order. I like to show or keep my layers here organized in terms of what's going to be in the foreground all the way down to what's going to be in the background. So that's how this is organized. So let me move this out of the way so that we can continue. And it's time to put in the layers. So I'll go to my layer properties manager, and you can see that my layers that have been externally referenced are there. So what I'd like to do is click on new layer, and this new layer, 01, heavy. Layer color for that is going to be magenta, color 6. Next layer, 02 medium. That layer color is going to be red. Add the next one. This is for objects that are going to appear in the background or that just simply need to be a lighter line weight. And that color is yellow. And then one more. This will be 04 beyond. This is for objects that just are far off in the distance, or for presentation purposes, just need to appear very light. And for this, I'm going to set this to blue. And click OK. All right, and that closed out. So now it's time to put in the lines. And if you take a look at the elevation, you'll see what is in the foreground. So let me just annotate here for 1 second. So if I look at my building, one of the first things I would see would be the stairs. And then after that, the next thing I would be seeing would be more or less the front window here, and then also the door. I can assume that all of this is in the same plane. And then after that, it's not that I'm seeing through my building, but past my building. If there was anything else beyond, what would that be? So if I show it this way, let's see if this helps a little bit. So I'm going to say that pretty much this is the information that's going to be in my foreground. Actually, a little bit further, right? So let me undo that, and we'll say that pretty much all of this is in the front, and then there's other information beyond that I'll have to think about. So this is how I'm processing it. So I'm going to go to my layers. And at this point, I guess I can start with this layer called heavy, because that's the heavier information. I'll double click that. And then what I'd like to do is simply just project lines down so I can start generating my stairs and then get to my door and window opening. So one way I could do this is just simply draw a line, enter from this point, bring it down, and this is where that perpendicular object snap comes in real handy. Give it a click, enter. So do the same thing on the other side. I'll enter, and from here, bring it straight down, perpendicular, like that. Now, I also want to put in my openings here, and I could project more lines, or I can put something in called an X line, which is a construction line. This is new. And in order to do that, I'm going to go back to my layers over here, and I'm just going to create a layer here called construction or guides. That's it. I'll just call them guides and enter. And before I enter, I want to change that color. And because I want these to appear relatively light on screen, I'll go with this color number 8 and then click OK. I'll make that my current layer, and then I'll proceed. And then I'm going to type in the command X line, enter. And this is a construction line. And now it says, what would you like to do? Specify a point or horizontal, vertical, and other options. And I would like to go with a vertical line. So I type V, enter. With that vertical line, I'm just going to come right up here. And I'd like to put a vertical line here. Another one there. One here. One there, just to capture that frame thickness. I have not put my window in, but I have the opening. So I'll track that and then tap the escape key. So these are guidelines. And then what I'm going to do is make sure that the guidelines go towards the back. So I'll take my XREF, I'll right click it, and I'll say draw order, bring to front. So now those guidelines fade to the back, or at least I hope that's what it looks like. And then I can begin to draw. So I'll zoom in here, and I know that my steps, they're only 6-inch increments. So I'm going to draw a line, enter, and I'm going to just track this point here, raise it, and type 6, enter, and go straight across. And let it go perpendicular there, and enter. And this is on the wrong layer, but that's okay. I'm just going to type MA, enter. Match the properties of this layer to that one, enter. And then I'll make sure to make that layer current so I can continue drawing on it. And then from here, I'll just offset or copy. It doesn't matter. So I'll just type O, enter, 6, enter. I'll take this up like this. And then I believe one more like that. Enter or escape. So I should take me up. Let's see. This would put me at 0. This is putting me at +6, +12, +18. Tap the escape key, zoom out. You don't have to use the X line. I'm just showing it to you as an option. It comes in handy. And what's really neat is if I zoom out, look at this. Those lines extend infinitely in AutoCAD. Remember, model space here is an infinite space. But if I type zoom extents, it completely ignores the X lines. So these are special lines in AutoCAD. So it's very helpful to have them. And then if you don't want to see them, this is why we use layers. You can always just turn them off. So a lot of advantages here. All right. For my elevation, the building, I want to establish a height. And I know that my building starts right here. Let's say this is the top of my concrete foundation wall. So now I have to build up. If you want a ceiling height in your house to be 8 feet, fine. You want it to be 9 feet or more, that's okay. Rule of thumb here is you set that height, and then you're going to add another 12 inches for the structure of the building, and then you're all set with the roof thickness. So I'm going to go ahead and type O for offset and enter. And I'm going to say, I want maybe a 9-foot ceiling height. So I type 9 feet, enter. I pick this line, take it up. And then I'm going to add another foot for the roof construction. So I take this line, I'm going to offset it up 1 foot, enter, and enter. And I'm all set. That's where I'm going to have my roof line. Now, I'm also going to have an overhang, and I think the overhang, I'll make it, let's say 2 feet. So I'll zoom in here, and I'm just going to type O for offset again, 2 feet, enter. I take this line, offset it that way, and then this one offset that way, enter. And then I'll fill it. F, enter. I make sure that the radius is set to 0, and then I fill it this line to that one. And I should have done multiple. That's all right. F, enter. M, enter. So multiple lines to fill it. And enter. And that at least gives me the soffit around my building. I still don't know what roof type I want to have. I can leave it as a flat roof. I can do that or go with a gable or hip or any other kind of roof, but I'm not sure yet, so I'm just going to pause on that for a moment. But I want to show you now, it's a matter of just trimming lines. And I'll type TR, enter. And then it says select object to trim, but there's an option. And this option is called cutting edges. So if I just click right here, it's just going to cut that, but it's going to leave that extra portion of the line. So if I type T for cutting edge and enter, I want to use just this line as a cutting edge only, nothing else. And then I enter, and now when I trim, it trims everything. And then enter. So that's a helpful setting to have. All right, let me just add the door for now. Now I'm going to pause, and this is me getting started with the um, elevation. So for the window, I do have my guidelines there. I might as well use them. Now, what I want to do is put in my frame for my door and also put in the doors. But these need to be lighter colors. So as it said in the instructions here, you're going to use these different colors for objects that are either in the midground, the background, or foreground, whatever the case is, or you need to have that either that heavy, medium, or the light line weight for presentation purposes. And in our case, that door frame doesn't need to be as bold of a line as the building. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select medium line weight. And then I'm going to come down here, and I know that this is the start of my door frame here. So I'm going to type L, enter, and I'll take it up like this. And a typical door height for residential projects is 6 feet 8 inches. To make it a little bit easier on us, it's okay to assume a 7-foot high door. And if you do that, then just add 2 more inches for the frame itself. But if you want to keep it at 6 foot 8, then add 2 inches and it'll be 6 foot 10 for the frame. So I'm going to stick with 7 feet door. So that means 7 feet 2 inches for the overall frame. Enter. And that takes me right there. And then I'm going to bring it across to this line. And then I'm going to click down here and enter. And then I'm deciding right now that I'm going to join all 3 lines. So I'm going to highlight them, and then I'm going to type J, enter, and now they become one polyline. And now I'm going to offset 2 inches to the inside, enter, and then I'm going to take this polyline and I'm going to make that light. So you can start to see that I'm going from a heavy line weight to a medium to a thin one. And this is all to show for presentation purposes that this is my door frame. And then one more line here is going to separate or going to give me the 2 doors. It's on the wrong layer, so I'll just type MA, enter, match this layer property to that object, enter. That's what my door is going to look like. I'm going to turn off my guides. Enter. And then real quick, just for the sake of discussion here, if I type Control P and I want to print this out, I'm just going to do a quick print. I'm not going to output this. And I'll go letter size and I want to plot, let's say, a window area. So I'm just going to select this windowed area like that. And it says fit to paper, but I don't want it to fit to paper. I want it to be to a scale. So I'll just pick, let's say, 1/8 inch for now. And it's a little small, but that's okay for what I'm doing. And I'll go ahead and click OK. No, I'm going to click preview. Oh, sorry. Plot style table, I'm going to pick monochrome. And in monochrome, I've already made changes. It says assign this to all layouts. Sure. Including the layout 1 and layout 2 settings. That's fine, even though I'm not using them. And then I'll preview this. This is what I'm trying to show you, and I'll zoom in. You see how heavy line, a medium, and then a much lighter. And as I look at this, I'm realizing maybe I'm going to be modifying my line weights as well, but that'll come later. But this is what I mean by it. So here, if I close out and I go to monochrome and color number 6, that was meant to be 0.6. After that, color number 1 is red. I'm going to make that 0.3. And then yellow, I'm going to switch that over and make it 0.2. And then I'll save and close. And then I'll preview. There we go. A little better. And I'm zoomed in real close. Let me pull it back out a little bit here like that. Just wanted to show you what I'm doing with my line weights, with my colors in AutoCAD, and then the line weights to output a PDF. So I'll close that out. And then one more thing I want to show you here. Let me just cancel out. And this is how I'm going to drop in a couple of lines, actually a polyline here. So I'm going to type PL, enter. I'm going to draw a polyline from this endpoint over to the midpoint here, and then to this endpoint, enter. And then I'm going to take this line. Let's see, do I have my line weights loaded? No. So I need to bring in a dash line or something. So I'm going to click on Other. I'm going to click on Load. And pick either dashed or hidden. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go with dashed. It's loaded. Click OK. I'm going to take this line and I'm going to switch it over so it's a dashed line. And then I have to adjust the line weight. So I'm going to come over here to the properties. And I'll start with a 12, enter. That could work. Let's see if I try 24. That could work also. I'll stay with 12. And then now's a good time for me to change it from that layer over to the light layer, or perhaps even beyond, because it's just an annotation here. What we're basically telling everyone that's looking at the drawing is that when you see this symbol, it represents a door. And right here where the two endpoints meet, that's the door hinge. And where these two endpoints are at the top and bottom, that's the door swing. And if it happens on one door, it's going to happen on the other. So I'm going to type MI, enter, select it, enter, and then take it from this midpoint straight down. And I'll just go to that midpoint. That's fine. And enter. That's how we're going to represent our doors. So I'll zoom it back out. I'll zoom extents. Oh, one other thing I should have pointed out. I'll click on my XREF. Because I'm not going to see anything beyond on the other side, I could have always taken my XREF and just basically clipped it right here to just focus on that. All right, and I want to show you one last thing here, because some of you may be drawing the stairs along the other elevation, the other side. So let me do this. I'm going to type CP for copy. I'm going to take this XREF, enter, and I'm going to copy it over here. Tap the escape key. And by the way, if you are interested in constructing two elevations, not just the one, you're more than welcome to do that. And then from here, I'm going to take the XREF, modify this clipping frame, and then I'm going to rotate it like that. And then I'm going to move it right here. And then I'm going to draw another line, track this one straight across like this and like that. Tap the escape key. And since I already have the lines over here drawn, I'm just going to copy them over. So CP, enter, all three of them. And I'm going to take this line as well. And I'm going to copy it from here over. I'm going to see if I can go perpendicular. Let's see. Will it match perpendicular? No, it's tracking the endpoint. Good. And that'll work too. So give it a click and tap the escape key. So the stairs here are going to look a little bit different. I'm just borrowing line work, but let me also do this. Draw a line from this point straight down, because this is where my building begins. And I'll just take it to this endpoint, or that perpendicular O snap there, and enter. All right. Now, I'm going to draw another line from here straight down so you can see this, like this. Enter. Enter again to repeat. Straight down like this, enter. So I just wanted to get the projection of the lines there. So let's look at this. this is my ground right here, and then I'm going to take a step up, and then I'm going to take another step up, and then I reach the top of my deck here. So I'm going to type F, enter, fill it this line, enter to repeat the command, and I should type M for multiple. Enter, and I'm going to type MA, enter to match the properties of this object to that one and that one, and enter. So when you look at your stairs from the side, this is what you're going to get. When you look at your stairs from the front, this is what you see. And then if I were to continue, I'm going to draw another line from here straight down, let it go perpendicular, enter. And I could draw them as guidelines as well. Either works okay. I'll take this line, extend it across, perpendicular here. And then the reality is that probably we are going to see a line coming through here because my stairs, they get built separately. But if you don't want to do that, you can always just trim. And you could say all of this is concrete, and that's fine. And then you would begin to project lines. If you have windows here, you would also draw that out. So that's how you would start it. And then the very, very last thing I want to show you here is the ground line. That needs to be a really heavy line. So I'm going to take both of these ground lines and I'm going to put them on this layer called heavy. But it may not be heavy enough. So in order to fix that, I'm going to convert these into polylines and give them what's called a thickness. Now they're just individual line segments, and in order to make a polyline here, I'm going to have to do something different. There's nothing to join. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to type in a command, and it's called polyline edit. So PE, enter. And it says select polyline. I'll pick this one. And then it says, would you like to turn it into one? The answer is yes. I enter. And then I have an option here to adjust the width. So I type width or click on width. And the new width here, I want to give it a nice thickness. I'm going to try 3 inches. So 3, enter. And you see how it changes there. And then I'll enter again. So when I zoom in, you can see it's a lot thicker, and it's probably going to print much thicker than the line weight I had it set to. So if I do a Control P for print, I did not save it, or maybe I did. Yeah, I'll go ahead, and it's already set to display, but I'm going to change the display if it'll let me. Oh, I need to pick a printer. One second. Let's see if I do previous plot. Oh, that was a different size sheet, but that's all right. I'll go ahead and click on window here for a second. And I just want to print this much out. And then I'm going to increase the scale. And then I'll go ahead and preview that. So you see what this did is this is a set line weight and has its thickness. But because I converted this into a polyline, I was able to adjust the width. So I'm able to manipulate that on its own. And it's a way of keeping me from having to create yet another layer, because I only have 2 lines that are going to do this. So it doesn't make sense to have one layer for just 2 lines. So I'll close out. And then I can go ahead and cancel this. And now if I go to my properties here, I'll select this polyline. I go to properties, and you can see that it is a polyline. And down here, it says global width 3 inches. You can change that to a different number, like 2, for example, and it will adjust. Tap the escape key. And then this line, if I look at the properties, sorry, here we go. Looking at the properties, notice it doesn't give me an opportunity to change the width because it's a line. It's not a polyline. So I have to make it a polyline first. So I'll tap out, and then I'm going to type in PE, enter. Select it and enter, because yes is the default. And then I'm just going to enter. because now I believe I should be able to type MA, enter, and match the properties of this polyline to this polyline and enter. Or if I wanted to, I'll undo that. I can pick it and then come over to the properties, and now I have a global width thickness that I can apply. So I'll set it to 2 inches, enter. I'm not saying that 2 inches is correct, but I'm putting it now as an idea, concept. And when I go to print this out, if it's not thick enough, then I'll come back and change the width. And vice versa. If it's too thick, I'll change it. But this is how you'll get started on the elevations. Just an intro. And what's really nice is if I make any changes to my floor plan, it's being referenced here, which means it will update when I update my floor plan. So let me show you real quick here. First of all, don't forget to save your drawing. I'm going to go over to my X plan. And let's say I want to have a nice window right here. So I'm going to draw a line. And somewhere from the midpoint, track that. I'm going to go over this way, let's say 2 feet. Draws the line, enter. I'll type L, enter. From this point, track it over this way, 4 feet. Here, enter. TR, enter. Click and drag, enter. MA to match properties of this object to these 2 objects. Enter. Zoom extents. And then Control S. That's very, very important. Now that I have that saved, I go back to my drawing. It's detecting a change. If you accidentally click on the X here, not a big deal. You just go to your external references and then notice how it shows you. It tells you on the status, it needs reloading. So right click that and reload. Where did it go? Interesting. Oh, it wants me to compare. I don't want to compare. So I'll just enter and I don't know what happened. Zoom extents. This is really interesting. REA. Fascinating that it disappeared. Well, what do you know? That's a first. Not found. Why is it not found? Because it can't find the path? Let's go ahead and tell it where to find it. Interesting. I'm not sure why that happened, that it lost the path. But I'll go back to my XREFs and it was all there. Interesting. I'm glad it happened to me. I was able to troubleshoot it. So right click and reload. And it should have just shown up, but that's all right. It's always better to click on that bubble, the link, and you'll be all set. All right, in progress. I'm getting there. I'm still not sure what kind of a roof I want, but I made some progress. And that's what matters here. All right.